Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast.
Eh.
You know the show that takes something you think you know and flips the script.
Uh-huh.
Today we're going on an adventure, but not the kind with maps and backpacks.
Okay.
We're diving deep into the world of paper.
Paper.
Yeah, paper. You're probably thinking, what's so adventurous about that? But get ready to be surprised.
Right.
We've got historical accounts, scientific insights, and maybe even a few myths to bust along the way.
Well, what's really fascinating about paper is that it's something we use all the time, but we never think about it, you know? But its journey is intertwined with the rise of civilizations, the spread of knowledge, and even a bit of battlefield intrigue.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going all the way back to ancient China, centuries before paper made its way to Europe. Picture the Han Dynasty around 105 CE. That's where our story begins, with a court official named Kai Lun.
And Kylin wasn't just any official, though. He was a eunuch who served several emperors. And he's credited with a truly revolutionary invention, the paper-making process we recognize today. Before that, people were using things like papyrus, which was made from reeds and much more limited in supply.
So Kai Lun was a bit of a rebel, shaking things up in the paper world.
You could say that his process was ingenious, using readily available materials like tree bark and old rags, transforming them into a durable and surprisingly affordable writing surface. It's hard to overstate how much this changed the game.
It's mind-blowing to think about a world without paper as we know it. No books, no newspapers, no endless streams of sticky notes.
Exactly. Kai Lun's invention democratized knowledge in a way, making it possible for more people to learn and communicate. And this brings us to one of the most intriguing, though potentially embellished chapters in the story of paper.
Oh.
Its journey from east to west.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Legend has it that after the Battle of Talis in 751 CE, Chinese prisoners of war skilled in the art of papermaking were captured by forces from the Islamic world. And they shared their knowledge in exchange for their freedom. And boom, papermaking technology spread like wildfire.
It's a captivating story, but historians debate the accuracy of this specific account. What we do know is that papermaking took root in the Islamic world around the 8th century and flourished. It became central to their culture, scholarship, and trade. In fact, the very word ream, which we still use today to measure paper quantity, has Arabic origins.
Wow, I never knew that. It's incredible how these ancient connections are still woven into the fabric of our language. Speaking of connections, there's another fascinating linguistic link to this era. The word bagatikos.
Yeah. Yes, Bagdatikos was an early European term for paper directly derived from Baghdad, a city that played a pivotal role in transmitting papermaking knowledge westward.
Okay.
It was a hub of commerce and learning, and paper was one of its most prized exports.
So basically, Baghdad was the paper capital of the world.
In many ways, yes. By the 13th century, water-powered paper mills were popping up all across Europe, largely thanks to the knowledge that flowed from the east through Baghdad and other centers of Islamic scholarship.
Hold on. I just need to pause and let that sink in. Imagine the ingenuity of those early paper mills, harnessing the power of water to drive their production. Talk about sustainable technology. And before we dive deeper into the evolution of papermaking, I want to make sure you don't miss out on the rest of this incredible story.
Yeah.
Hit that subscribe button so you can join us for part 2, where we'll unravel the mysteries of pulping paper machines and even paper clothing.
You won't want to miss it. We'll be exploring how paper went from a handcrafted luxury to the ubiquitous material we know today, and the impact that transformation has had on our world.
Okay, now back to our historical journey. We've reached a pivotal moment. The shift from recycled rags to wood pulp as the primary source of fiber for papermaking.
This transition, which took place in the 19th century, was truly a game changer. It was driven by the increasing demand for paper and the limitations of relying solely on rags, which were becoming scarce and expensive.
Enter Charles Fenerty and Friedrich Gottlob Killer, two names that deserve a place in the papermaking Hall of Fame.
They both independently developed methods for pulping wood, paving the way for mass production.
Their contributions were monumental. Imagine the sheer volume of trees needed to satisfy the world's paper hunger.
Right.
Fenerty and Keller's innovations made paper production more scalable, affordable, and in a way more democratic, making paper accessible to a wider range of people and purposes.
So before Kylan, paper was a luxury good, then it became more accessible, and now thanks to these guys, it's everywhere. It's like the evolution of paper is mirroring the evolution of human progress itself.
That's a really insightful observation. The story of paper is deeply intertwined with the story of human innovation and our quest to find better ways to communicate, create, and interact with the world around us. And with that thought, I think we've reached a perfect stopping point for part 1 of our deep dives. We've journeyed from ancient China to the bustling paper mills of medieval Europe, witnessing the remarkable evolution of this seemingly simple material. But the story doesn't end there.
Oh no.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve into the inner workings of modern papermaking, uncovering the secrets of pulping paper machines and the fascinating world of paper properties. We'll even explore some surprising and innovative uses of paper that you probably never knew existed.
You really won't want to miss it.
Until next time, keep those pages turning. Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast. In part 1, we journeyed from ancient China to medieval Europe, tracing the fascinating evolution of papermaking. We saw how this seemingly simple material revolutionized communication and helped shape civilizations. Now we're going to fast forward a bit and delve into the inner workings of modern papermaking.
Right. The 19th century saw a major shift with the introduction of wood pulp as the primary source of fiber for papermaking, thanks to pioneers like Charles Fenerty and Friedrich Gottlob Keller. This laid the groundwork for the mass production of paper we see today.
So we've got mountains of wood pulp ready to be transformed into paper. What happens next?
Well, this is where the science and engineering of papermaking truly shine. There are 2 main processes used to create pulp from wood: chemical pulping and mechanical pulping.
Okay, let's break those down. Chemical pulping sounds a bit intense.
It is. Chemical pulping involves using chemicals to break down the wood and separate the cellulose fibers from lignin.
Okay.
Lignin is a natural substance that binds wood fibers together, but it can cause paper to become brittle and yellow over time.
So removing lignin is like giving paper a fountain of youth.
That's a great way to put it. Chemical pulping creates stronger, longer-lasting paper, which is why it's used for things like archival documents, high-quality books, and even money.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Now what about mechanical pulping?
Mechanical pulping takes a more physical approach, literally grinding the wood into fibers. It's a high-yield process, meaning less wood is wasted. But the resulting paper is weaker because it still contains lignin.
So mechanical pulping is all about efficiency, while chemical pulping is about quality and longevity.
Exactly. Each process has its own advantages and applications, and they've both played crucial roles in making paper such a versatile material.
Speaking of versatility, let's talk about recycled paper. It's a huge part of the paper industry today.
Absolutely. Recycling paper conserves resources, reduces landfill waste, and even requires less energy compared to making paper from virgin wood pulp. It's a win-win for the environment and the economy.
I think a lot of people assume all recycled paper is the same, but there's actually a whole system for classifying it, right?
That's right. Recycled fiber is categorized based on its origin. There's millbroke, which is essentially paper scraps and misprints from the paper mill itself recycled right back into the process. Then there's pre-consumer waste, like trimmings and offcuts from printing and packaging. Finally, there's post-consumer waste, which is the paper we use and discard, like newspapers, magazines, and office paper.
So when I toss that junk mail into the recycling bin, it has the potential to be reborn as a newspaper, a cereal box, or even a piece of high-quality stationery.
Exactly. Of course, most recycled paper contains a mix of recycled and virgin fibers to ensure quality. But the more we recycle, the less we need to rely on virgin wood pulp.
It's fascinating how this material can have multiple lives, constantly being transformed and repurposed. Okay, so we've got our pulp, whether it's virgin or recycled. How does it actually become a sheet of paper?
This is where the magic of the paper machine comes in. Picture a giant, intricate machine that takes a watery slurry of pulp and transforms it into a continuous roll of paper, all in a matter of minutes.
It sounds like something out of a Willy Wonka factory.
It's pretty incredible. The pulp is first spread onto a moving wire mesh, which allows water to drain away, leaving behind a thin layer of fibers. This web of fibers is then pressed between rollers to remove more water and compact the fibers together.
And then it's time for the drying process, right? Turning that damp sheet into the crisp, smooth paper we're used to.
Exactly. The paper web is then passed through a series of heated rollers, essentially giant hair dryers, which evaporate the remaining moisture. The paper then goes through a calendaring process where it's pressed between smooth rollers to create the desired surface finish.
So that's how we get all those different textures, from the rough surface of watercolor paper to the glossy sheen of a magazine cover.
Exactly. Papermaking is as much an art as a science, with countless variations in texture, weight, and color.
You mentioned weight. I've always been a bit confused by the different paperweight systems. Can you help us decipher them?
Of course. In the U.S., we use a system based on the weight of 500 sheets, or a ream of paper in a specific size. In Europe, they use grams per square meter, or GSM. So a sheet of 80 GSM paper will always be lighter than a sheet of 100 GSM paper, regardless of its dimensions.
It's good to know there's a method to the madness. But beyond these technical details, I think there's something inherently fascinating about the properties of paper. For example, we often think of paper as fragile, but that's not always the case, is it?
You're right. The durability of paper depends on a few key factors, including the type of fiber used the pulping process and any additives or treatments applied during manufacturing.
So what's the secret to creating paper that can withstand the test of time?
One crucial factor is acidity. Paper made with acidic pulp tends to become brittle and discolored over time. The acid weakens the cellulose fibers, making them prone to breakage.
Ah, so that's why some old books and documents practically crumble when you touch them.
Exactly. Nowadays, many paper manufacturers use acid-free pulp and alkaline sizing agents, which help neutralize any residual acid. This ensures that the paper remains stable and durable for much longer periods.
That's good news for archivists and anyone who wants their important documents to last for generations. But there's another big question that often comes up when we talk about paper, its environmental impact.
That's a valid concern. Paper production does have a significant environmental footprint. It requires a considerable amount of wood, water, and energy. And deforestation, especially in sensitive areas like old-growth forests, is a serious issue associated with unsustainable logging practices.
It's a complex issue with no easy solutions. On the one hand, we rely on paper for so many things, from communication to packaging to hygiene products. On the other hand, we need to be mindful of the impact our paper consumption has on the planet.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's why the paper industry is constantly exploring ways to make paper production more sustainable.
So what are some of the most promising innovations on the horizon? What does the future of paper look like?
One exciting area is the development of alternative fibers, such as bamboo hemp and agricultural residues. These fibers can grow much faster than trees and often require less land and water.
That sounds promising. And what about recycling? Can we push the boundaries of recycled paper even further?
Absolutely. Researchers are developing new techniques to improve the quality of recycled fiber and to close the loop on paper recycling, making it a truly circular process.
That's exciting to hear. But I'm curious, with the rise of digital technology, do you think paper will eventually become obsolete? Will we all be reading ebooks and signing documents electronically in the future?
It's certainly a question many people are asking. While it's true that digital technology has transformed the way we communicate and consume information, paper still holds its own for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I have to admit, I still love the feel of a book in my hands, the rustle of turning pages. There's a tactile experience to paper that's hard to replicate digitally.
You've touched on a key point. Paper provides a tangible, enduring medium that can evoke a sense of permanence and even nostalgia. And for certain applications like artwork or official documents, paper still offers a level of authenticity and security that digital formats can't match.
So it sounds like the future of paper isn't about replacing it with digital alternatives, but rather finding ways for both to coexist and complement each other. It's about choosing the right tool for the right job while always being mindful of the environmental impact.
I think that's a great takeaway. The story of paper is far from over. It's a story of constant adaptation, innovation, and finding new ways to meet our evolving needs, both practically and creatively.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this second part of our paper deep dive. We've explored the intricacies of modern papermaking, from pulping processes to paper machines, and we've even peered into the future of this endlessly fascinating material. But our paper adventure isn't quite over yet.
No, it isn't.
Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast. We're in the final stretch of our deep dive into the world of paper. We've explored its ancient origins, the evolution of papermaking, and even the complex environmental considerations. Now, get ready to have your mind blown, because we're going to uncover some surprising and innovative uses of paper that you probably never saw coming.
Yeah, when we think of paper, we often picture things like books, newspapers, or maybe a cardboard box, but paper's versatility goes far beyond those everyday applications.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me the paper lowdown. What are we talking about here?
Well, let's start with something you might encounter every day without even realizing it. Paper and construction. It's not just about cardboard boxes anymore. We're talking about paper-based structural components that are incredibly strong and surprisingly sustainable.
Hold on. Paper in buildings. Is this some kind of futuristic sci-fi material?
Not quite sci-fi, but definitely innovative. One example is paper honeycomb,
Okay.
which is a lightweight yet incredibly strong material used for building panels, furniture, and even in aerospace applications.
Wow. That's amazing. I never would have guessed paper could be so strong. It's like a secret superpower hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting when we look at things like paper-based insulation.
Okay.
It's a sustainable alternative to traditional insulation materials and can help create more energy-efficient buildings.
So we could be living in houses made partly of paper. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It's not as far-fetched as it might sound, and the innovation doesn't stop there. Researchers are even developing paper-based electronics. Imagine flexible displays that can be rolled up like a newspaper, or sensors printed on paper that can detect everything from environmental pollutants to medical conditions.
That's incredible. It's like paper is entering a whole new dimension. But
Yeah.
what about the stuff we're more familiar with, like different types of paper for writing and printing? Is there anything new happening there?
Absolutely, papermaking is a constantly evolving field. There's a growing focus on sustainability with manufacturers exploring alternative fibers like bamboo, hemp, and agricultural residues.
Right.
These fibers can often grow faster than trees and require less land and water, making them more environmentally friendly options.
It sounds like the paper industry is really stepping up to the sustainability challenge. But with all this talk about innovation and new technologies, I'm wondering, what about the simple act of writing on paper? Will we ever truly abandon pen and paper for digital note-taking and communication?
That's a great question, and I think it gets to the heart of why paper continues to hold a special place in our lives. While digital tools offer incredible convenience and efficiency, there's something inherently satisfying and even therapeutic about the tactile experience of writing on paper.
I completely agree. There's a flow to penmanship, a connection between your thoughts and the physical act of writing that I just don't get from typing on a screen.
And there's scientific evidence to support that studies have shown that writing by hand can improve memory retention, enhance creativity, and even reduce stress. It's a practice worth preserving even in our increasingly digital world.
So maybe the future of paper isn't about choosing one over the other, but about finding a balance, embracing the best of both the digital and the analog worlds.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. The story of paper is a testament to human ingenuity and our ongoing quest to find better ways to communicate, create, and connect with the world around us. And as we move forward, it's crucial that we continue to explore sustainable practices and innovative solutions that ensure paper remains a valuable and responsible part of our lives.
Well said. I think this deep dive has given our listeners a whole new perspective on paper. We've journeyed from ancient China to the cutting edge of innovation, uncovering surprising facts and busting myths along the way.
It really has been a fascinating journey, and I hope our listeners have come away with a newfound appreciation for this versatile and endlessly fascinating material.
Absolutely. And who knows what other surprising chapters await us in the ongoing story of paper. Perhaps one day we'll be reading our news on flexible self-updating paper displays, or living in houses built with paper honeycomb walls. The possibilities are endless.
Indeed, they are. And that's the beauty of human ingenuity and our enduring relationship with this remarkable material we call paper.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our paper odyssey. I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of paper. It's been a pleasure exploring with you.
The pleasure was all mine.
And for all our listeners out there, keep those pages turning, keep those creative sparks flying, and remember, there's always more to discover, even in the most everyday things. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes of Tell Me More Stories Told Us podcast, where we'll continue to uncover the extraordinary stories hidden within the ordinary.